All right, get ready because we're taking a deep dive today into a true classic, Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
You've sent in a really fascinating set of excerpts, and I'm so excited to break these down with you and see how they can really be used in everyday life.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this book is it's often seen as this guide for workplace productivity.
Yeah.
But it goes way deeper.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing these scripts we live by, or as Covey puts it, paradigms, and how we can kind of rewrite them to
I
become,
know.
more effective in everything we do.
Paradigms. Okay, so not just seeing the world differently, but actually changing our understanding of it.
Right.
What makes that so important for being effective?
Well, think of it like this. Paradigms are kind of like these mental maps we use to navigate life.
Okay.
They influence how we interpret everything we go through. And just like an outdated map, an old paradigm can really hinder your growth and effectiveness.
I'm starting to see how this connects to those excerpts you picked about the character ethic versus the personality ethic.
Exactly. Covey argues that the character ethic, which is all about these timeless principles like integrity, fairness, that's the foundation for real lasting effectiveness.
Right.
It's about who you are at your core, not just the techniques you use.
So not about surface level fixes, but a solid foundation based on principles.
Yeah.
I'm curious, where do you see people kind of getting tripped up by focusing too much on that personality ethic stuff in their own lives?
I think it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how often we prioritize appearances over substance, or focus on short-term gains at the expense of long-term growth.
Yeah.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs much deeper attention.
Totally makes sense. So how does this tie into Covey's first habit, be proactive?
Right.
I'm sensing a connection here.
There's definitely a link. Proactivity goes beyond just taking initiative. It's about recognizing the space between, something happening and your response to it. And Covey uses this really powerful story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's heavy stuff. How does Frankel's experience connect to being proactive?
Well, despite facing this unimaginable suffering, Frankl discovered what he called the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose his response.
Oh.
Even in these horrible circumstances, he found a way to control his own mindset.
So proactivity isn't about our circumstances, but our choices.
It's about the internal.
Yeah, but how do we actually become more proactive in a practical way? It feels kind of vague.
But one tool Covey suggests is pay attention to your language,
Okay.
Reactive language, it focuses on things outside of your control, like saying, I have to, or it's only.
Right.
Instead, try flipping it and use proactive language like I choose to because.
So it's about reframing our thoughts to focus on what we can control. Okay, I can see how that could be huge. But it takes real awareness, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that awareness leads right into habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
Now, this might sound morbid, but Covey starts this with a visualization exercise where you attend your own funeral.
Whoa, okay, that got my attention.
Yeah.
That's definitely not your typical self-help advice.
Right.
What's the point of that, slightly terrifying exercise?
It forces you to think deeply about what really matters.
Yeah.
What would you want people to say about you? What kind of legacy would you want to leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
It's about aligning your actions with the person you want to be remembered as.
That's deep. It's not just about setting any goal. It's about the right ones, the ones aligned with your values.
Exactly. And this habit hinges on this idea that all things are created twice. First, there's the mental creation, the vision, the plan. Then comes the physical manifestation of that in the real world.
So just like an architect creates a blueprint before building,
Exactly.
we need one for our lives.
Yeah. It's about being the architects of our own lives, not just passengers going along for the ride.
I can already see how that shift in perspective can be so powerful, but how do we create that blueprint? Does it mean planning out every detail?
I don't think it has to be that rigid.
Okay.
It's more about defining your core values and creating a mission statement that can guide you.
A mission statement. Isn't that a little corporate sounding?
It might sound formal, but think of it like a compass.
Okay.
It captures your values, your aspirations, your own unique purpose.
And how do we make one? What are the steps?
Covey gives a lot of guidance in the book.
Yeah.
But I find it's helpful to just start by asking some big picture questions.
Okay.
What are your unique talents, your strengths? What contributions do you want to make? What kind of legacy do you want to leave?
Those are some big questions. It's almost like writing your own eulogy, but while you're still alive to do something about it.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It helps you live intentionally.
This is already giving me a whole new way of thinking about my own life. And we're only on habit 2.
I know.
I can't wait to see where this deep dive takes us next.
Me too.
This is great stuff.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we'll be back in a flash with more from the 7 habits, so don't go anywhere.
Right back.
All right, so we've laid the groundwork, being proactive, having that clear vision for our lives.
Right.
Now, how do we put those into practice?
Yeah.
Enter habit 3, put first things first. Seems like where it all comes together, like actually getting things done.
It is. It's about prioritizing.
Yeah.
We can have the best intentions, but if we don't have a system to prioritize and execute on those intentions, we just get bogged down in the day-to-day stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know I'm guilty of letting those urgent but not important things take over.
Right.
And then I just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. And that's where Covey's time management matrix comes in.
Okay.
He divides tasks into these 4 quadrants
Right.
based on urgency and importance. And his big idea is we need to spend way more time in quadrant 2. Not urgent, but important stuff.
I remember this matrix, but I always struggle with that quadrant. It feels like everything's important.
Yeah.
How do we decide what really goes there?
Yeah, it's about identifying those things that contribute to our long-term goals, even if they don't have a deadline breathing down our necks.
Okay.
Things like planning, building relationships, developing skills, preventative health care.
So it's about being proactive instead of constantly reacting to fires.
Exactly.
But doesn't that take a ton of discipline?
It does, but the payoff is huge. Think about it. Spending time in quadrant 2 is like investing in your future self.
Right.
It might not be glamorous right now, but it sets you up for success and well-being in the long run.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light. So how do we break free from that urgency addiction and actually live more in quadrant 2?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Covey suggests tracking your time for a day just to see where it's going. You might be surprised how much time you spend in quadrant 1, urgent and important, and how little you're giving to quadrant 2.
That's a scary thought. I bet I'd find a lot of wasted time.
Yeah, and once you have that clear picture of your habits, you can start making choices about how you spend your time.
Right.
Maybe delegating tasks, learning to say no to things,
Yeah.
scheduling dedicated time for quadrant 2 activities.
It's about being in control of your time, not letting it control you.
Exactly. It's about freedom.
Yeah.
When you live a quadrant 2 life, you're not at the mercy of circumstances anymore. You're the one in charge.
That's powerful stuff. Okay, I'm definitely feeling inspired to take a closer look at my own time management habits. Now, let's move on to habit 4. Think win-win.
Okay.
Sounds very idealistic, but how practical is that in the real world, where people are competing for resources and all that?
Well, it's about approaching everything with this mindset of abundance and collaboration.
Oh.
Instead of thinking it's a zero-sum game where one person wins and the other loses,
Right.
it's about finding solutions that work for everyone.
That makes sense. But what about compromise? Isn't that necessary sometimes?
Well, compromise often leads to resentment. True
Yeah.
win-win means understanding the other person's needs and then finding ways to create value for both sides.
So it's not about just splitting the pie, but making the pie bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a huge shift in how to look at things. Can you give an example of how that might work in real life?
Sure, imagine you're negotiating a work agreement. Okay. Instead of focusing on who gets the bigger salary or the corner office,
Right.
think about how you can structure it so both people have opportunities to learn, grow, and contribute.
It's about finding those areas where everyone can thrive.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this can apply to all kinds of things. Business negotiations, personal relationships. It takes a real commitment to empathy and working together, doesn't it?
It does. And it leads right into habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is all about learning to truly listen to someone else before trying to make them understand you.
That sounds so simple, but we're so bad at it, aren't we?
We're so quick to jump in with our own opinions
Right.
that we don't really listen.
Yeah, we're more focused on our response than actually hearing what they're saying.
Exactly, and Covey calls this empathic listening.
Okay, what exactly is empathic listening? It sounds like next level listening.
It's about listening with the intention to understand, not to reply.
Okay.
Putting your own agenda aside and seeing the world through their eyes.
So not agreeing, but understanding their perspective.
Right.
How do we do that? This deep listening, it seems like, more than just, not talking while they're talking.
It is, you have to pay attention to not just the words, but the emotions behind them.
Okay.
Covey suggests reflecting back what you hear, asking clarifying questions, validating how they feel.
I've noticed when someone really feels heard, It can de-escalate even really tense situations.
It does.
It creates trust.
Exactly. And that trust is so important for communication and problem solving.
Right. It opens the door to those win-win solutions we talked about.
Exactly.
I'm seeing how these habits all build on each other.
They do.
It's like one leads to the next.
Yeah. And that brings us to habit 6, synergize, which builds on the previous two. It's the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, synergy. I hear that word a lot. What does it actually mean?
It means recognizing that when people with different perspectives and skills come together, they can create something amazing, something they couldn't have done alone.
So not just teamwork, but using those differences to make something new.
Exactly. Like imagine a team working on a project.
Okay,
If everyone has the same ideas, they're probably not going to come up with anything groundbreaking.
right.
But when different perspectives clash in a good way, that's where the magic happens.
I love that it's like mixing different colors of paint to make a new color that's even better than the originals.
Perfect analogy.
Wow.
And just like mixing paint takes skill. Creating synergy needs the right conditions.
What needs to be there for synergy to happen?
You need a lot of trust, a commitment to win-win outcomes, and a real appreciation for different viewpoints.
Okay.
And good communication skills, being able to say your ideas, and also listen to others.
This makes me think of emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Being able to understand your own emotions and others too. That's crucial for synergy.
Is emotional intelligence helps us handle conflict, communicate well, and build strong relationships. And those relationships are the foundation for creating real synergy.
Okay, I'm seeing how these habits come together to create this powerful force for, being effective both personally and with others. And that brings us to the final habit, which seems to tie it all together, sharpen the saw.
Yes, it's about recognizing that we can't be effective if we're neglecting our own well-being. Covey compares it to sharpening a saw to show the importance of constantly renewing ourselves.
So it's like self-care, but maybe deeper.
It is. It's about investing in ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially. It's about making sure we have the energy and the inspiration to really live our lives.
That reminds me of you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You have to take care of yourself first.
Right, Covey breaks it down into those 4 dimensions.
He does.
Let's start with physical. What are some ways to sharpen the saw physically?
Right.
I know I need to get back to exercising. I've been slacking off and I can feel it.
Yeah, exercise is great for your energy. It reduces stress, improves your health.
Right.
It's also important to eat healthy and get enough sleep.
All those basics.
Yeah.
What about spiritual renewal? That seems a little less clear-cut.
It's about connecting with your values, your sense of purpose, something bigger than yourself.
Okay.
This could be meditation, prayer, nature, creative activities that feed your soul.
It's about finding what really nourishes you on a deeper level.
Exactly.
For me, it's spending time outdoors. It helps me reset and feel at peace.
That's great. And that connection to something larger can give you strength, especially when things get tough.
Okay, on to the mental dimension. What's that about?
Keeping your mind sharp through learning, reading, writing, challenging yourself. It's like exercise for your brain.
So staying curious and learning throughout life.
Yeah.
I love reading. That's definitely a big part of my mental renewal.
And it doesn't have to be formal education. It can be anything that stimulates your mind.
Right.
Podcasts, lectures, good conversations,
Yeah.
or just taking time to think.
This makes me think about having a growth mindset, being
Yes.
open to new ideas.
Exactly. And that leads us to the last dimension, social emotional renewal.
Okay, social and emotional. This seems like it connects to the other habits about relationships.
It does. This is all about nurturing those connections and developing our emotional intelligence. It's about investing in the relationships that bring us joy and support.
So making time for things that strengthen those bonds,
Yeah.
spending time with loved ones, having good conversations.
Exactly. And also working on your emotional intelligence. Learning to understand and manage your emotions and be sensitive to others. This helps us communicate, build trust, handle disagreements.
It sounds like all these dimensions are connected. If you neglect one, it affects the others.
Very true. That's why it's so important to have a holistic approach to self-care.
Right.
Covey emphasizes it's not about adding more to our to-do list, but making small, consistent efforts each day.
So just fitting those practices into our routine, even for a few minutes.
Exactly, like compound interest.
Yeah.
Small efforts over time lead to big results.
I'm really seeing how important this habit is. It's not selfish. It's about creating a lifestyle that helps us be effective and fulfilled.
Exactly. It's realizing that we are our most valuable asset.
Right.
And just like any asset, we need to invest taking care of it.
Wow. So we've gone through all 7 habits now, and I gotta say, this is a pretty comprehensive framework.
It is.
It's not even just about the individual habits. It's like a whole different way of thinking about life.
Yeah, it really is. The 7 habits offer a roadmap for this principle-centered life, one that's based on integrity and purpose and effectiveness.
And what's so cool is that these principles can apply to anyone, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what your background is or your job or your situation. These habits can help anyone become more effective in every area of their life.
It's all about making choices.
Right.
We can choose to be proactive, to focus on what matters, to nurture our relationships, to take care of ourselves. It's a continuous journey of growth.
I'm curious, what's one of the most common things you see people getting wrong about the 7 habits?
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is people think it's about being perfect,
Yeah. Right.
like achieving this perfect state of being.
Yeah.
But that's not it at all. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Yeah.
It's about making those small, consistent improvements over time.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. And that's what makes this work so timeless. It's not a quick fix. It's a lifelong process.
He's given us these tools that we can use to just keep getting better and better.
And the more you use those tools, the better they get.
Right. It's like a cycle. It reminds me of that idea of the upward spiral that Covey talks about. How as we learn and grow, it has this ripple effect on everyone around us.
It's like a snowball effect. The more effective we are, the more we inspire others to be effective too.
This has been such a great deep dive into the 7 habits.
It has.
It's given me so much to think about,
Me too.
to try to, use in my own life.
The real magic is in actually putting it into practice.
Right.
What resonated with you the most today? What's one little step you can take today to start using these ideas?
And here's a final thought for you to consider as you go on your own journey of, trying to live a more effective life. How can you be a force for positive change in your own world? How can you use these principles to make a difference in other people's lives? That's it for a deep dive into the 7 habits.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.